Well, well. That was Five Wells. Season 3, Episode 1 of the Hockey Talk Show as we get ready to dive in and cover NHL season 2019 into 2020. I am so excited to be here. I am so excited to be talking hockey with you guys on this Monday, September 16th. And there is so much to talk about as the NHL preseason is in full effect. Training camp started on Friday. Mitch Marner signed. Hockey Talk Show Season 3, Episode 1 is here on Monday. How great is this? If you're new to the Hockey Talk Show, know that we talk hockey here two-way. You can comment in the YouTube chat or the Facebook chat, depending on where you are watching the show. If you're listening via podcast, thanks so much for your support. You can get more information on the Hockey Talk Show at hockeytalkshow.com. We also have a phone number. We will activate that phone number and actually take calls from you guys on certain shows. This is not one of them for now. We'll just take all your questions, comments, and answers, so on and so forth, through the chats below on Facebook and YouTube. We have a lot to cover. Mitch Marner received not one, but two offer sheets early on in the summer. We speculated about that. Now we'll speculate about who were the offer sheets coming from. The NHL and the NHLPA have decided that we are going to have labor peace for the next couple of seasons, which is amazing. I'm so thrilled about that. So we'll have uninterrupted hockey for the next few seasons. And the RFAs are still a big story. Obviously, Mitch Marner signed. We'll talk about the offer sheets. But we got to talk about Konechny, who signs today. Charlie McAvoy, who signed over the weekend. Where does that leave Patrick Laine and the Winnipeg Jets? Where does that leave Matthew Tkachuk and the Calgary Flames? Where does that leave all the Brock Besser and the Vancouver Canucks? There are still a ton of RFAs out there that need to be signed, and that cap space seems to be getting tighter and tighter and tighter. We got a lot to cover. It is Season 3. It is Episode 1. It's the Hockey Talk Show. All right, it is good to be back. If you have a question about your team, what they're going to be looking like, let me know in the chats below, and I'll try and get to as many answers as I possibly can. Bruins Phil checking in. Chris rooting for the Bruins checking in. You guys got to be super excited about Charlie McAvoy being under contract. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something in the water. I don't know if I don't know what it is in Boston, but they have an uncanny ability to get their players under contract for far less than anybody can speculate. Far less. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even close. And it's just unbelievable to me how they're able to make this work on a consistent basis. Charlie McAvoy re-signs, 3-year deal, $14.7 million. It's an annual AAV of $4.9 million. It is super affordable, probably way less than most people assumed he was going to sign for. But just like every other one of their players, Charlie McAvoy he's on board, and he signed for way cheaper. Way cheaper. And I'm shocked. I'm shocked for it. I'm happy for him, but I'm shocked because, again, the Boston Bruins, they've struck. You know what I'm saying? They just continue to make it happen. I don't know. I think it's the locker room. I think it's maybe Zdeno Chara is a hell of a captain. Maybe that window to win now continues to be pretty wide open for the Boston Bruins. That's pretty attractive. And let's be honest, it doesn't come without some, concessions. It's a 3-year deal. McAvoy could have signed for far longer than that. He didn't. So that makes sense. That's one thing to look at when you take a look at what this is. But it's amazing to me, and I gotta credit Austin Matthews for this maneuver, because prior to the Matthews signing, even right up till Connor McDavid, it was give me the max. Let me get as many dollars as I can get for the max amount of years. And it was Austin Matthews who said, hold on a second. With the way every single year since we've had a good CBA here, the salary cap has gone up. The salary cap rose. So if I sign for less years now, I'm opening up myself to sign for more dollars in the later years. And he was really the first one to sort of do that. Now, he didn't invent the bridge contract. You know what I'm saying? He didn't invent that, but he was the first one to really go, hold your horses on that 8-year deal. I'll take mine. I'll take 5 years. Thank you very much. And he sort of changed the playing field around a little bit there. I got to be honest with you. And so now we start to see some of these deals that come in, like Charlie McAvoy at 3 years. Chris writing in on the Facebook page, Boston is a great place to play. They're always trying to give their players a chance to win. At least they tried to get them in the best situation to win. Very true. It's a good point. Like I said, that window is open for them. Boston is a great place to play. You got a great captain who's been there. You got experience. You got championship pedigree. And, the Boston Bruins are rolling. But as we're seeing with the Bruins here, and we're going to see with the Toronto Maple Leafs, you've got a window. And you got a real tightly defined window. It's a different window than we've seen with the Pittsburgh Penguins, who would probably argue that their window to win a championship is still open. With I was about to say Phil Kessel. Sorry. With Crosby and Malkin still being there. The Chicago Blackhawks would probably argue their window is still there with Kane and Taves. So we'll see. We'll see what shakes out for the Boston Bruins. But I want to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I want to talk about Mitch Marner up at the start of the show here, because I am fascinated by the fact that we did get 2 offer sheets from NHL teams early in the summer, and he barely entertained them. Darren Ferris is his agent. He was on TSN radio earlier. Here's Darren talking about the process of Mitch Marner getting those offer sheets tendered to him.
I'll tell you, there were 2 presented to him in the summer, 2 opportunities, which he declined. And he told me, Darren, I don't want to sign them. I want to be a Leaf. So we declined both those opportunities. And I know Kyle was aware of one of them, that the team had actually had told them that they had made the overture to Mitch. So, and there was a very, very strong likelihood there were more being presented once the season started. As you know, the cap number gets set, and it makes it more difficult for a team to match. So, but his goal always was to be a Leaf, and that was the conclusion.
All right, so a lot to unpack there. Obviously, Marner's goal always to be a Leaf, but 2 offer sheets coming earlier in the season. Now, we speculated about this in an earlier episode in this offseason on the Hockey Talk Show. Might have even been the last one when we were talking about the fact that he was going to go off to Zurich to train. Darren, actually, he addressed that this morning, as well as he had a little bit of a media tour this morning. And he basically said, look, we were just, he was never going to Zurich to play. It was always just to train. And we had to get things set up. We had to put things into place so that, if he was going to wind up in Zurich, he had a place to go and a place to be. We had to set that all up. It leaked out. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, he's going to Zurich to play. It was never the case. Never the case whatsoever. We had to put things into place. So I'm sorry about that. It was never the case whatsoever that he was going to go over there to Europe to play. They just had to get a training schedule in place, which I totally understand. That's that's a valid thing to do if you're the Marner camp. What 2 teams were the teams who put the offer sheets together? I got to tell you something here, and just taking a look around, I think there is an obvious one right off the bat, and let's talk about that. And that's the Columbus Blue Jackets. They were gutted in the offseason. They had and continue to have an absolute ton of cap space. I think they're sitting at $10 million right now. And you'll notice something about all the cap space if you take a look at capfriendly.com, which is the website that the Hockey Talk Show relies on. And that's that all of the teams' salary caps right now are incredibly bloated. And that's because they're all carrying just huge rosters at the moment where, everybody's got a whole bunch of people under contract, training camp tryouts and all those things. There's going to be one-way contracts that go down and get hidden in the minors. So that's why everybody's a little bit bloated right now if you look at Cap Friendly. But basically, the Columbus Blue Jackets lost a ton of players, had a ton of money. I have to think that they were the ones, Jarmo Kekalainen, without a doubt, went out there and was like, let's throw some money at this and see if we can make it work here. So I have to think that absolutely Columbus was one of the teams that did it. Now, if they weren't one of the teams that did it, my guess would be that they were absolutely one of the teams that called up Darren Ferris and said, hey, we're going to prepare an offer sheet. Can you take Mitch's temperature? She's like, should we do this? Is it worth it? Should we, is it a waste of time? Would he consider it? Does he want to at least hear what we have to say? Blah, 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 so on and so forth. So if we're going under the assumption that they were the ones who at least called, and that would mean that there were more teams, again, just taking a quick look around the league, I have to think that the Islanders were one of the other teams. You got to look at Lou Lamoriello's relationship with Mitch Marner. He drafted him. He was the outgoing general manager. The Islanders at the time had a bunch of money. They no longer do, having gone out and signed Simeon Varlamov and a couple of other players. But, we were all there on July 1st tracking the day and seeing what's what and taking a look at everything. And we all saw the time that they took getting their captain, good old number 27, under contract. And there was that delay, and we all thought it was for Panarin, and I believe it was for Panarin, but I would have to guess that there was also a conversation that took place between Lou Lamoriello and Kyle Dubas. And the reason why I say the Islanders is because of what Darren Ferris said, and that was the fact that, one team let Kyle Dubas know that the offer sheet was sent, and the other team just sent the offer sheet. I would have to think that it was Lou who said, hey, taking a run at Mitch, we just tendered him an offer sheet. It just makes a whole ton of sense. It's not a revenge for John Tavares leaving. I don't really buy into any of that. It certainly makes the story fairly sweet. It doesn't hurt the narrative of the story. But to be honest with you, I don't think it's not a revenge move. It's Lou Lamoriello sitting there going, I could really improve my roster in a major way. We think the Islanders are ready to win this year, second round with what we have. We had Mitch, so long 4 first-round draft picks, but who really cares? Because between Marner and Barzell and all these guys, we're going to be running at the cup for the next couple of years. Okay, so I think it was definitely the New York Islanders. The Columbus Blue Jackets just make a whole bunch of sense. And some of the other teams that were in the mix, I would have to think, probably the Devils before they went and made all their additions. You would have to think that they would go out there and kick the tires on these guys. And then the only other team that really makes a whole ton of sense to me is the Colorado Avalanche. And again, I'm making that assumption based on cap space. They have a whole ton of it. I don't think that they really need a Mitch Marner, but I didn't really think that the Toronto Maple Leafs needed a John Tavares, and they went out and got him anyway. So teams are going to pinpoint the guys that they want, and they're going to go out and get them. And what are you going to do about it? So the only other team that I can think of outside of who we just talked about would be the Ottawa Senators, but would be a laughing stock. If Pierre Dorian was one of the guys who sent in an offer, it would absolutely be a laughing stock. What I found interesting was, and thanks for joining us here, Season 3, Episode 1 of the Hockey Talk Show. We're going to be doing lots of live shows here over the course of this week as training camp gets underway. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, especially on YouTube. We're trying to up our subscribers over there. Hit that thumbs up on YouTube. Same deal for Facebook. Got a lot of people watching on Facebook right now. Thumbs up, hit the share button, spread the word. Hockey Talk Show. We're here talking live hockey back and forth. You can leave your comments, talking trade rumors, training camp rumors, all that kind of stuff. And right now we're talking about Mitch Marner and the offer sheets. But I have to think that Mitch Marner fumbled the handling of this, because when Darren approached Mitch and said, hey, you got 2 offer sheets, according to Mitch Marner, and what he said to the media today was, I didn't even ask about him. I just told my agent I wasn't interested in going down that route. So I honestly and truly, I got to give Mitch Marner a big fat F for handling his restricted free agency, because I think he handled it piss poorly the whole entire way through. We talked about this a whole bunch as we were heading into the offseason, and I wrote a blog about this again that you could see at thehockeytalkshow.com, that Mitch Marner's number was 12. $12 million was his number. If you handed Mitch a contract with $12 million on it per year, I think whether it was 6 years, 5 years, 8 years, he would have signed it. He would have been the highest paid Maple Leaf on the team currently. I think that was a big deal to him. I think that was his number. Now, rumor had it that the Leafs tendered him an offer at $11 million earlier in the summer. We now know that that's not true. In fact, Darren said in another interview, hey, there was a lot of fabricated rumors out there, and basically none of them were true. So we can forget about the $11 million offer. If you give the guy an 11, it doesn't make sense from a team standpoint, because if you give the guy an $11 million offer on June 30th, where do you go on September 1st when he's still not signed and you need to go into training camp? You can only go to 11.25, 11.5, 12. It doesn't leave you a lot of room. I have to think that those first couple of offers from the Leafs were definitely around that $9 million a year mark, which is why we started down this road. Okay. We all know, though, when it comes to negotiation, you have to have other options. And I understand why Mitch doesn't go and say, hey, Kyle Dubas, I got an offer from the Columbus Blue Jackets sitting here at $12.5 a year to be the highest paid player. What are you going to do about it? I understand why he doesn't want to do that, but to a certain degree, you kind of have to do that, right? And we all know how offer sheets work. He could have signed with Columbus at a number knowing that Toronto was going to have to match it. Now, maybe it was too high, maybe, okay, I'm not going to sign with Columbus for 12.5 because I don't know if the Leafs can really match this. But you got to take that contract and go into Toronto and go, guy, look at this. I mean, I got this offer. Let's not get crazy here. Let's get this under wraps. I mean, I think most people, depending on what your job is, have been in that situation. I personally have been in that situation. I've had to walk into the big boss's office and go, hey, not that I was looking for it or anything, but another company just contacted me and said they want me to come work for them, and this is what they're offering. I'd rather stay here. What can we do about it? Match my deal. Get close. Whatever the case is. I feel like we've all been in that situation. It's awkward. It feels weird to do, especially if you're a loyal person, which it seems like Mitch is. But you can't sit there and go, I want my $12 million, and then get a big fat offer from somebody else that can usher along the process and go, but I'm not going to take that. Well, which is it? Or do you want the money? Do you want I really feel like Mitch Marner handled this piss poor the entire way. And not for the fact that, like we always say, like winners and losers. The Toronto Maple Leafs won. People are sitting there going, oh, Mitch Marner's making a lot of money, $10.8 million, blah, blah, blah. That's crazy money. Crazy money. The guy had 94 points last year. People go around talking about, oh, Mitch Marner shouldn't make more money than Austin Matthews because Austin Matthews is a center and Austin Matthews. Bull crap. He was your point leader for 2 years. People go, oh, he's not a goal scorer. Last time I checked, assists count just as much as goals. You get a point for an assist and a point for a goal. That's the last time I checked the old rule books. So this idea of Matthews is a center or Matthews is a goal scorer, he obviously should be paid more. Not in my world and not in most agents' world. That's crazy talk. So I think Marner could have absolutely stayed and got 11.5. And now you're thinking, Ant, what's the difference? You're talking about $700,000. He gets to play where he wants to be. I agree with you. Then why drag it out into September? If you were going to sit there and take less than $11 million, why in the hell did this last till September? It doesn't make any sense to me. That tells me two things. One, the Leafs offer to start was super low. And two, Mitch Marner negotiates pretty terribly. Pretty terribly. Which I also find a little bit hard to believe because you have agents and everything else that kind of handle all this for you. They shouldn't allow you to get there, but, the player's in charge. at the end of the day. But it felt like a really, really bad job for Mitch Marner. I feel like he left, I know he left money on the table because he could have gotten more from another team. You want to stay, I understand that. I still feel like he could have squeezed a few more dollars out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. The interesting thing is, that being said, he kind of screwed all the other teams that have free agents that need to sign. Let's go up and down the list. All right, so McAvoy is off the table. $14.7 million contract with the Boston Bruins. He signs on Sunday, $4.9 million. And they'll have a lot to figure out at the end of those 3 years. But again, a lot of these teams, their answer isn't get long-term stability. Their answer is kick the can down the road. That's their answer. I bet you, and I wonder, because we talked about the CBA not being opened. So essentially, the NHL and the NHLPA had a window that they could reopen the CBA if they wanted to. If they both chose not to reopen the CBA, it would go until, I think it goes to the 22 season, so 3 more years. I do find it interesting now that Charlie McAvoy is going to go 3 years, and essentially his contract ends when the CBA ends. Not a good situation to be in. And most players and agents negotiate around that. In fact, every single contract that's been signed for the last 2 or 3 seasons has been heavy loaded with bonuses versus actual pay because of that very factor. Most agents turned around and said, you can figure out whatever you want to be. We'll work with you on AAV, but how the actual money. So, McAvoy is going to make $4.95 million, right? And I don't know what his specifics are, but any player makes $5 million a year. They'll get $4.25 million in signing bonuses, which means every July 1st of the contract, they get a check of $4.25 million. And then the rest of the $750,000 gets paid over time throughout the course of the season, like a regular paycheck, like a regular person. So that signing bonus comes up every single year. So the reason why all these players took big signing bonus laden contracts is because if there was a work stoppage, doesn't matter, that signing bonus comes out. I don't have to worry about my contract and where it is when the CBA ends because I got a big fat check July 1 every single year. They don't care. So that's why a lot of those contracts were that way. So I wonder if McAvoy would have signed for 3 years knowing what we know now, which is we don't have a CBA past that. That being said, I don't want to fuel speculation where it's not necessary. I think the NHL and the NHLPA will sign an extension. I think that they were super close and on the same side. I think the fact that they don't reopen the contract on either side is a great sign that we'll have labor stability for a long time. Let's be honest. I worked in this league during one of the work stoppages, and I saw what it did to the league not playing. It's not a fun thing for anybody to go through. The league has done its best to protect the general managers from themselves. And where we're at right now economically is the best this game has ever been in. We could boo Gary Bettman all we want, but the guy is a complete genius. Has he made some mistakes? Absolutely. But the fact of the matter is throughout the entire history of the National Hockey League, all 100 some odd seasons, there has never been a more prosperous time for the National Hockey League than it is right now, and it's happened under Gary Bettman's watch, and he gets all the credit that he deserves for that. So I think we'll have a lot of labor stability moving forward. I think we'll see some changes. I wonder what the RFA structure is going to be like. I don't know if anybody was anticipating the Austin Matthews move of, well, I'm not going to go for the most. I'll take less years. We'll have to see how that all shakes out. But I think we'll have the next time we talk about the CBA, it'll be an extension between the two parties. So where does that leave us for the rest of the free agents? Patrick Laine. By the way, Travis Konecny signs today. 6-year deal, $33 million, 5.5 annually. Good signing for the Philadelphia Flyers. 22 years old, good forward. Right? Everybody loves Travis Konecny. 49 points last season, 24 goals, 25 assists. You want to see those assist numbers get up a little bit higher, but overall, it's a good number for him. Marner gets super dollars there, kind of messes with everything a little bit, but 24 goals, paying $5.5 million for 24 goals, that's a good value and a good move for Alain Vigneault going into his first year behind the bench for the Philadelphia Flyers. So Patrick Laine, Matthew Tkachuk, Brock Besser, where does this leave those guys? It leaves them all in a pretty precarious situation. Because if we take a look at where the salary cap is for some of these teams, Winnipeg has a good amount of cap space at $15.4 million. The problem with Winnipeg is this year it's Patrick Laine and Kyle Connor that they have to get under contract. And then next year they have, a few more guys that are coming up for free agency. So it's not so much this season. It's really playing this out and seeing where you're at the next couple of seasons. Adam Lowry, Andrew Kopp, these guys are all going to come up and need contracts over the next couple of years. So you got to be super careful where you spend that money if you're the Winnipeg Jets. I think that there's still a real strong possibility of an offer sheet heading into the beginning of the season. And the other thing that Darren Ferris said, and the reason why I bring this up too for Patrick Laine, is he said in his comments that we played moments ago, you can go back and watch it, go back and listen to it. We had 2 at the beginning of the summer, and obviously the way that the salary cap works, we were expecting more. So the Islanders may be out of it, the Devils may be out of that mix, but you're still sitting there looking at these teams, most notably Columbus, and they're still with a ton of space. Columbus still has over $15 million in cap space. Excuse me, over $10 million in cap space. I fully expect them to throw that money at a player, especially in a year where they lost Artemi Panarin and they lost Bobrovsky and they lost Matt Duchene. You soften that blow a little bit when you bring in the big fat RFA, especially down towards the end of the season. Now, the Colorado Avalanche have $15.6 million. They're in really good shape to tender somebody an offer sheet. I pumped the brakes on that a little bit because the other big RFA that's still out there, Mikko Rantanen, they got to get him under contract. And they're in a little bit of a different scenario because where Calgary and Winnipeg, they might be able to get a break because they can go to Patrick Laine and they can go to Kyle Connor and they can say, look, we need to leave a little bit on the table for the other guys. Colorado has no excuse. There's no reason to give him a big fat contract. Now, okay, you got some other guys, Tyson Jost. Okay, they're just like Winnipeg, you got to have to pay them down the line a little bit. That's true, but you have the most space out of any team right now in this situation. Sans Ottawa, nobody goes there, nobody cares. You got to figure that out. Because if I'm Rantanen's representation, I'm sitting there going, you better open up your paycheck, your checkbook, because we got to get paid. And there's no reason for you not to. And I don't know if Mikko Rantanen has the same loyalty to the Colorado Avalanche that Mitch Marner does. In fact, I would absolutely bet my home and my children on the fact that he doesn't. All right? There's a whole different thing from growing up in Toronto and idolizing the Toronto Maple Leafs and playing for the Colorado Avalanche. Okay? Even Matt Duchene, the last person I ever saw loyal to the Colorado Avalanche, he up and left, had no problem doing so. He was like, thanks for the memories. Peace. I'm out of here. So we continue to keep our eye and watch this scenario. Rantanen in Colorado, Winnipeg and their situation. And what makes Winnipeg so interesting is Patrick Laine is kind of like, peace. I'll be over in Europe chilling out until you guys figure out this contract situation. He is not reporting. He will not be in camp. He doesn't want to know nothing. You can forget about Patrick Laine if you're the Winnipeg Jets, and that's absolutely how they have to prepare for this situation. Let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks and Brock Besser. They have $4.1 million in cap space right now. Not going to be enough to get Besser done. I'm assuming he'll come in. I'm assuming the fight right now with Besser is the $6 to $7 million range. I think they'll be able to get there because I think right now we're looking at Vancouver with about 25 contracts, 25 one-way contracts. So like we talked about earlier, some of those one-way deals are going to get sent down to the minors and they're going to get buried. So you should absolutely be able to open up a couple $1 million in space and get Brock Besser in a 6.5 where they probably want him, 7 at the worst if they have to. Where it becomes sticky is when you start getting injuries and things of that nature, or if you want to bring in somebody, let's say Vancouver catches fire and they want to add to at the deadline, that's going to get awfully tricky because you're not going to be able to, because you're going to be so close to the cap ceiling. And then we look at the Calgary Flames and the Matthew Tkachuk situation. So here they sit right now and in training camp with roughly $6.3 million in 22 contracts. So even if you send a couple of contracts down, you're probably talking about $700,000 contracts, $800,000 contracts, not a ton of room to save money there. Similar situation with, let's look to the future and see who we have to sign moving forward. Mark Giordano and Noah Hannafin are the only defensemen who are under contract for next season. TJ Brody, Travis Hamonic, and everybody else on that back end is a UFA or RFA. So you're going to have to make some decisions there. On forward, Michael Frolik is the only real forward of substance. Okay, Mark Jankowski, if you want to count it, who's up and has a no contract for next season. So you're really up against it if you're the Calgary Flames. And if you're Matthew Tkachuk and you want to stay, again, this is really close to the Marner situation where you want to stay, you want to be here, but you have to justify the dollars. Now, Tkachuk may not be able to argue for the almost $11 million that Mitch Marner got, but if you look at this past season, he only scored 18, 16, 17 less points. He finished with 17 fewer points than Mitch Marner did. 34 goals, 43 assists. You're going to have to pay for that. That's going to cost you money. And Calgary doesn't want to let Matthew Tkachuk go. So I'm assuming as they sit there with the $6.3 million in space, Tkachuk is probably talking about 8.5. Maybe his ask is even as high as 9, where the Calgary Flames would probably feel a lot more comfortable with him around 7. A lot of space there with Tkachuk. Tkachuk, Rantanen, Laine, top 3 right now for me to get offer sheeted at some point here before we start the actual season. Julius Honka for the Dallas Stars has requested a trade. That was something I wanted to mention here quickly. Reason being is I think we're going to see a lot of movement at the beginning of the season. Similarly to the Bruins and the Islanders hooking up for a trade, good old 55 coming in a couple of years ago. They go out and they make the deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. We've seen a couple of, since the time the Islanders traded for, for Johnny Boychuk, since they traded for Nick Leddy, we've started to see a lot of player movement at the beginning of the season, trades, so on and so forth, offer sheets that I think are coming. I think we'll see that in a major way this offseason for sure. I think we're going to see a lot of movement between teams as we get set for the 2019-2020 season. Quickly before we go, and I'll wrap it up, if there's any questions in either one of the chats, let me know. And then we got to go because it's 7 o'clock in the East. And we actually got hockey action on the TV tonight. Boston and the Devils are going. Chicago and Washington are going. Devils in Montreal, split squad there. I'll be watching the Islanders and the Philadelphia Flyers tonight. Pittsburgh, Buffalo. 8 o'clock games are Florida, Nashville, St. Louis and Dallas at 8:30. Vancouver and Calgary at 9. Same for Winnipeg and Edmonton, Calgary and Vancouver in another split squad game at 10. So hopefully you're watching some hockey wherever you are, getting excited for this season. Additions for this upcoming year. Who had the best? Well, I take a look at who was out there. The Coyotes added Phil Kessel and Carl Soderberg. By the way, we haven't even scratched the surface on the Phil Kessel drama because as we're starting to learn, as it all is coming out here, Evgeny Malkin said, you either trade Phil Kessel or you trade me. Those two did not get along. Malkin did not have a good year last year. And we all saw how that broke out last year with the GM there, Rutherford, and figuring it all out and publicly putting Kessel on the market and then not really having him on the market and all that kind of drama. Well, as it turns out, him and Malkin just flat out did not get along. What's up, Eddie? How are you, my friend? So, you know, Kessel goes over to the Yotes. Carl Soderberg, like those additions. I thought that Colorado really beefed themselves up really well. Kadri, most notably, of course, they add Burakovsky and Bowen Byram and Donskoy. Good moves. Kadri, I like a lot on that team, but you got to get Mikko Rantanen under contract. Dallas gets a lot of veteran leadership there, adding Joe Pavelski and Corey Perry. Could be big moves for Dallas. Let's talk about the Florida Panthers. They add Bobrovsky, Strawman, and Noel Acciari. I love these moves all around. Now we get a look at the Florida Panthers and that offense. They've got some fairly decent D down there, but they got Sergei Bobrovsky. They have some real stability in net. I'm not questioning the leadership of good old number one. I love him. He's one of my faves of all time, but you got solid goaltending with the Florida Panthers now. Look out for them in the East. I think they're going to make some moves. The Toronto Maple Leafs, by the way, for all the criticism that we're going to throw Kyle Dubas' way, he adds Tyson Barrie, Alexander Kerfoot, Cody Ceci, and Jason Spezza. He gives this team a little bit more of the defensive help they need. Now, Tyson Barrie, we talk about windows. I only see him being there for a year because they got to get their other big cat defenseman under contract here. We got to get a contract ready to go for Morgan. Oh, no, not Morgan Riley. Well, Morgan Riley is going to need a contract eventually, but you've got to get, you've got Muzzin. Look at this defense. Morgan Riley is the only defenseman who has a contract past this year. Ceci, Muzzin, Barrie, Martin Marincin, all these guys, free agents. Travis Dermott, free agent. Got to get him under contract. Dermott's going to be the big one. That's their big ELC that's going to be coming off, and they're going to want to make a move on him and get him signed long-term. They've been grooming him for a long time to take a bigger role there, and we all know about their $40 million top four forwards, so defense is going to be really important. But there might be the one-year window here where Tyson Barrie is here, and you got that defenseman that Mike Babcock has been desperately needing, and you got to make a move. You got to make it work in this year, because if not, you're back to the drawing board to see who you can get next season under contract. There's not a lot of great defensemen that'll fit under the $4 million that they seem to be going with here, the $4 million defenseman plan that the Toronto Maple Leafs have that are going to work. Tyson Barrie is going to need a raise. He's at 2.7 this year. He's not going to be at 2.7 next year. And I think some of the two teams we talk about, the Florida Panthers in the East, the two teams that had the biggest jump for me, the New York Rangers and the New Jersey Devils. You can shake in your boots if you're a New York Islander fan, for sure, because the Rangers added Artemi Panarin, Capo Caco, who looks sick. Did you see that wraparound goal he scored? Check the Facebook page for the Hockey Talk Show. It was ridiculous. Jacob Trouba beefs up their back end, and of course they add Adam Fox, big prospect there. The Devils add Jack Hughes, Nikita Gusev, two guys that have to prove themselves for sure, but two big offensive additions. And they add Wayne Simmons and PK Subban, two big tough guys. And PK Subban, I'm a big fan of him, a huge defenseman. Love PK in a big way. I know a lot of teams don't. Moves out of Montreal, moves out of Nashville, both give up on him, don't like the off the ice stuff. He's got a flair, he's got an attitude. Teams don't like that. I have no problem with it. I think he's one of the best defensemen out there. He obviously won the Norris. I think he has a massive year in New Jersey. Massive year. Corey Schneider gets back to his old form. The rest of that team in the defense that they got over there, Butcher and everybody else, I love the Devils this year. I really love the Devils. And I'd be scared if I was the rest of that Metropolitan Division, because the Devils are going to be tough to compete with. Really, really tough to compete with. Alexander writes in, Dubas has lost every negotiation with the top four. I think he won the Marner negotiation. I'm not going to lie to you. I think he won it. I think the idea of getting Marner under contract at $9 million was 3 years ago thinking, 2 years ago thinking. You can't put up 94 points and go, would you like a $9 million? It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I will say this, and Dubas is going to get criticism. I've criticized Kyle Dubas, but he came out and he said, I see a path to get all 4 guys under contract. And I didn't see that. I didn't think it was possible. And he made it work. Sure, he can't sign a defenseman for more than $4 million anymore, and he's got everybody coming off of a deal in the next year, but he did it. He said he was going to go out and do it, and he did it. Is it smart to have $40 million in 4 players? Probably not. When you look at all the other teams in the league, they don't have that. But it's not do or die. Things can happen. Things change. And let's be honest, William Nylander never got a no-move clause, so we all know he's going to get traded. He'll be the first one off the ship if it comes down to it. Hockey is here. Season 3 of the Hockey Talk Show, Episode 1. Thanks for joining us so much. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. And if you can, we got some links we're throwing out in the comments section to donate to the Hockey Talk Show. For 99 cents a month, you can support us throughout the course of this year. That basically covers our costs for putting together the show here. If you can do so, we would certainly appreciate that. Easy to make that donation on our anchor page, which is linked from thehockeytalkshow.com. Enjoy the hockey action tonight. I most likely will see you again in a live setting here at some point again this week. When we get closer to the start of the season, I would imagine we'll have a bunch of live shows throughout the course of the week. And then as the year goes on, I want to shoot for 3. I think 3 live shows kind of seems to be a good level. And of course, now that we have the blog, we could put out content consistently. Make sure you share our articles when we put them out on Facebook, Twitter, and follow us on Instagram. Have a great night, guys. Enjoy the hockey action. If you can see it in your market, you may have to listen to it. Sorry about that, Chris. But I'm going to go watch the Islanders and Flyers right now. I'll see you guys on the next shift. Have a great night.